Hey guys, this is Regina with Inspire. And as you can see, we're wrapping up today's edit. This show, I know you're going to be encouraged and inspired. It's a story about a lady whose name is Valerie Burton, who suffered with stage 4 cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and survived. Her story is incredible. We're gonna show the short edit, but if you want to, you can watch it on YouTube and get the full story. What I want to say today is that you don't want to miss it. So don't go anywhere. Hang out right here with us. We'll be right back with Inspire.
So you know what? I want to start at the beginning, before I was actually diagnosed, because I think that's really important. Because the cancer that I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's called mycosis fungoides, and nobody's ever heard of that. I hadn't until they diagnosed me with it. But and that was in 2002, I was diagnosed. But before that, I was sick for 2.5 years.
I read that in the notes.
Yes, this started out as a little rash on my back.
Wow.
It was about maybe the size of a nickel. So it's just really small rash on my back. I thought it was a ringworm or something. I just didn't know what it was, but it was itchy.
Okay.
So I went to a dermatologist right there in Bryan, where we were living, and he said, "Oh yeah," he looked at it. He said, "Oh yeah, you have psoriasis or eczema, is one of those. It's no big deal." He gave me a prescription, some kind of cream. He said, "Use this for a couple of weeks and it should go away." And so at this appointment, there was no biopsy, none of that. He just looked at it and said, "Oh, I've seen this a million times.
Right.
Psoriasis or eczema, put this on there and you're good to go." About 2 weeks later, it was spreading down my back.
Really?
And I said, okay, I was applying the cream, I was doing all the stuff, and still, and I think at nighttime was the worst, I was itching like crazy. So I went back and I said, "Hey, it's not working. Matter of fact, it's worse." And so he said, "Oh, no worries. We'll just switch the cream. Everything will be fine." This went on for a couple of months until a rash was all over my back. My whole back was covered, and it was going down my legs.
Okay, so hold up one second. At no point in time from when you went to like a couple of months later, did they do a skin biopsy? No scrapes, no nothing. So this thing is just getting worse.
It's getting worse.
Okay, all right.
And I didn't even think to ask, "Why aren't you doing a biopsy?" I mean, the doctor, he's been practicing for years and years, and he knows what he's talking about, right?
Right.
I went through the same thing with the second dermatologist, and eventually I stopped going to her. And I said, okay.
And still no biopsy?
Still no biopsy. Rash is now on my arms. It's moved to the front of my body. My torso is covered with the rash now. My legs are involved. I'm no longer sleeping. I'm just, when I did fall asleep, I was literally scratching in my sleep.
Wow.
And Willie started to say, tell me, let's put some socks on at nighttime because you're scratching yourself until you bleed in your sleep.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah. Dermatologist number 3.
Okay.
This was a weird story. Someone recommended a well-known dermatologist to me in Houston. Okay. And scheduled this appointment with this man. I get there and they tell me he passed away. And so now I was going to be seen by people who were going to be just filling in for him until they got a permanent person to replace it. Yes. So same thing. Hey, you have psoriasis or eczema. We've seen this a million times.
And no biopsy.
Get this under control. No, ma'am, no biopsy.
Okay, so, well, we're going to fast forward. So
fast forward.
When did someone finally decide to do a biopsy on this rash?
Willie suggested I go to UTMB in Galveston. So his family, lots of them have sickle cell. and that's where they've always gone for treatments.
Okay.
So he said, you know what, let's just go down there. My family's always gone there. They've taken care of my siblings, and let's just go there because I feel like I'm literally just watching you die. Wow,
it was to that point.
None of this stuff is helping. We're buying all this medication.
Right.
Yeah. So we get to UTMB. I'm trying to think of the January 3rd, 2002. We went to UTMB.
Okay.
I'm in the room waiting on the doctor. She walks in. She says, "How long?" She just looks at me. She says, "How long have these tumors been all over you?"
Wait a minute. Tumors. Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. No, I have a rash. I have psoriasis.
Exactly.
And, what do you mean tumors?
Tumors. They had started to show up like in my eyebrows. There were little lumps here, and they had started to come out in my forehead. And she says, "How long have these tumors?" I said, "What do you mean tumors? What, you know?" Just that word, I know what that is.
Right. So did you not notice that you were developing these bumps? Or did you think it was a part of the rash?
I thought it was just this rash, I didn't know what was happening. I really didn't.
Okay.
I felt horrible. I looked horrible, and I just didn't know what was happening. I mean, I'm under the care of 3 different doctors, and
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she did a biopsy. She said, "I know what this is, but I'm going to do a biopsy, and I'm going to call you tomorrow and tell you what stage this cancer is."
Stop.
Yeah.
Are you serious? Okay, so, all right, we're going to pause right there just for a second. So she's just telling you, okay, this is cancer. This is cancer. She's not taking you down the path of psoriasis or any of those things. This is cancer. She knew what it was when she saw it. And so you leave there, like, are you
freaking out?
You're freaking out. Yeah, definitely.
That's the best way I can describe it. Just, you know, she has said cancer to me, and she said, "I'll call you tomorrow."
Okay.
And she called me the next day, and she said, "Hey, you're in the last stage of this thing.
So you're in stage 4.
Stage 4, and you need to get to MD Anderson as quickly as you can."
Wow. Wow. So you go from there, and you find out you have stage 4. Wow. So
they diagnosed me in stage 1 when that little bitty rash was on my back. They could have treated this with a topical cream, and that would have been it.
Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness! But you know what? Who thinks to ask? For a biopsy, and probably if you ask for one at the dermatologist, he probably think you're crazy.
Right.
No, I've seen this, but that's something right there that really those of you that are watching, that you're listening, when you have something strange that pops up on your body, don't just kind of go with what the norms could be. And I know a lot of times we don't want to look like we're over the top, like, oh my goodness, it's just a rash, please, lady. I had a similar ordeal like that kind of took a while for them to kind of nail it down. And I just didn't know the right questions to ask. And I think that's important, that you know your body and that you're brave enough to be your own advocate and ask questions about what's going on. And you can ask for tests to be done. So go ahead. So they diagnosed you have stage 4 cancer that could have been dealt with truly with an ointment on that one little spot, that now you're in stage 4. How many months later?
Oh gosh, 2.5 years.
2.5 years, okay.
2.5 years I was diagnosed.
By the time you get the diagnosis, the report's pretty grim. And if I'm correct, was it MD Anderson that gave you only 2 months to live?
That's right.
Yeah.
My first appointment.
First appointment.
And that whole thing is just another miracle how God even worked all that out. Gosh, Willie, in the middle of all this, Willie lost his job. And so we're thinking that's the worst thing that could happen here. God, what is happening? Now we don't have insurance.
Wow.
Now, how are we going to go to MD Anderson and have this, treated? What's the deal?
Right.
So, but God,
yeah,
God works in such a way that we just will never understand, but it was amazing.
My God.
So initially just calling MD Anderson, trying to set up that first appointment, I was notified I would have to have $2,500 just to see the doctor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just to see. And I said, well, you know, he doesn't have a job. How is this work? And so they were kind of telling me, hey, you might not even want to come up here because you have to have $2,500. You know, you're going to have this cash for her to see. Wow. So at this point, though, Willie tells MD Anderson, hey, look, I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is I'm bringing my wife down there, and you guys are going to see her.
Oh, I like Willie already. Way to go, Willie. I don't have $2,500. I don't know what y'all going to do, but I'm taking my wife. We'll be there.
But she's going to be seen.
I know that's right. That's
right. What he told them. Oh, so he said, right. So you schedule her appointment.
Schedule her or...
and we're coming.
Right, we're on our way.
Yeah.
Amen.
So, but then even with that, they tell me, well, the only doctor here who can see you, she is an expert with mycosis fungoides. She's traveling out of the country lecturing on mycosis fungoides at the moment, and she won't be back here for another month. So at that point, I had to sit. I found out on January 4th, and I had to wait until February 5th for my first appointment. So I had to sit home knowing I had stage 4 cancer for a whole month.
No treatment, just knowing you're like in the last stages of cancer and you can't be seen.
And you know, God just kept me.
Yes, he did. What were those days like, Valerie? Like, are you sitting there and you knowing, you know, that you need God to show up? Yeah. You know, we have like those little, like, I love talking about like those fluffy kind of prayers, you know, but then there are those prayers that are life-sustaining prayers, that moment with God, like every day, you know, to just show up the next day. And so, you know, what was that? Was that like, you know, I dare not ask you, were you afraid? Because I'm sure there was some fear, but...
You know what? When I was first diagnosed, I was devastated.
Yeah.
You know, my kids were 9 and 7 years old. 7 years old, yeah. I had just turned 30 years old in November, and in January they give me this news. And so it was devastating, but I had a lot of family and friends coming to see me and praying for me, and they walked this out with me.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I'm trying to figure out when, between the time I was diagnosed and the time I went to the hospital.
Right.
I wasn't leaving my house much because the tumors kept coming out. You've seen the pictures where the tumors were all over even my ears, and just my whole body was covered with tumors. So I wasn't really in the house.
Right.
But one Sunday, we decided to get up and go to church. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't think anybody had invited us. We just decided to go.
I'm going to church.
We went. We decided to go. And so, I joke about this because, but it really happened like this. I walked into the church and it seems like every head turned all at the same time and just looked at me because I probably looked like a monster.
Right.
And, some people actually didn't recognize me.
Oh, my goodness, Val.
They didn't recognize me. It was that bad. The tumors were just, my face was kind of deformed at that point.
I saw the pictures. You were on the other side of this when I met you. And so when you showed the pictures, I was like, what in the world? What happened? And then I read your story. Well, I knew who it was, but I was just like, oh my goodness, when did this happen? Because you're so beautiful now, and I've seen you in person. And so to think about where you were and where you are, if you weren't telling us some story, or people that didn't know you, they would say that's impossible for you to have come from that place to where you are now. Yeah.
It's quite a journey.
Yeah, yeah. So you go to church, they're looking at you. What do you want to stay? Do you want to leave?
well, you know what? I just figured I would go in and just sit and be really quiet and just, sit in the back. We sat in the back, so, I wouldn't disrupt service. And so during service, though, I think this is, I really want everybody to get this. During the service, and the pastor hadn't seen me, okay? So he's preaching. I don't know, there were probably a few hundred people in the church.
Right.
And he suddenly stops during his sermon.
Wow.
He said, wait a minute. God wants to heal somebody here right now. He said, there's somebody here.
Wow. Yeah. You were on God's radar. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
He said, there's somebody here. And God wants to heal you right now, and you need to come up here. And again, I think every head in the church.
They turned around and looked at you. I think that might be your word.
He has to be
I think that might be
about
for you, ma'am. Oh my God! Yes.
I knew he was talking about me. So I grabbed Willie's hand and I said, "You got to go with me."
Yeah.
We went to the front. And
you're that one. You're that one the pastor's not looking for, though. We're talking about the one. No, that was not you. You go back. If I didn't have faith, it just got real jacked up right there. Yeah.
So, at the altar, they anointed me with oil, and they prayed for me.
Come on.
And with everything in me, I knew God healed me in that moment.
In that moment.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel good. All of a sudden, the tumors didn't suddenly shrink. My skin wasn't suddenly beautiful. I looked the same. I felt the same, but I knew I was healed. I knew I was healed. And nobody could tell me different from that moment on. So then when I finally got to MD Anderson that morning.
Let's stop there for a second. When you said, I knew. There was no evidence that I was healed. I didn't look any different than when I went in there. I think someone needs to hear that. You're holding on by faith. You're looking at an impossible situation with man. And so it's important that you hear what she just said. It didn't look like she was healed. It didn't look like, she had received anything from God. But you knew down in yourself that God had showed up for you.
I knew it.
Yeah, I know exactly what that's like. Yeah, I do.
So we're at MD Anderson, still with no $2,500.
Yeah, that $2,500 is out. MD Anderson can hang that one up.
We show up just with our faith. And we met with a woman that morning. I tell you, God had it all
mapped out,
lined up. It was just all set up.
Yeah.
And we met with a woman that morning, and she said, "Tell me your situation." And so I told her all of this. I told her about his job loss. I told her everything. And she looked at me and she said, "You will be seen today."
Oh.
I don't know what I need to do or who I need to talk to.
Yeah.
You're not leaving here without being seen.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, my husband already told y'all that."
Right.
And I tell you, at about 15 minutes before my appointment time, that same woman came and found me, and she said, "You have been approved for 100% financial assistance through MD Anderson. You will never have to pay a dime for treatments, and every prescription you'll only have to pay like $3.
Wow.
For the entire time that you're treated here, you won't have to pay a dime."
Wow. Oh my goodness. So you go, the lady, the one that you need to see, she shows up, right? You meet with her, and how does that go?
I met with her, and they started immediately just putting me through all these tests. They did everything. I met with maybe 3 or 4 doctors that day, and so I think we stayed at MD Anderson probably 6-7 hours that day. And at the end of the day, I'm talking with her, and I says, "Well, what do you what do you think? I said, what am I going to have to go through? Chemo, radiation, what all are we going to do?
The
And
whole
she looked at me and she said, Ms. Burton, we're going to try and keep you alive for the 2 months.
Valerie, and like,
and
was your face still holding?
I still knew what I knew.
There you go.
I looked at her and I said, you do all that you know how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And God is going to do the rest because he already healed me.
Yes, yes.
I said, this is not going to kill me.
Yeah.
So you do all that you know how to do, and God's going to do the rest.
Right, right. My God.
But I was in denial.
Of course, because everyone is that says that. I know they got to give you that little pat on the shoulder. That's so sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So now was the time to schedule someone at the hospital for me to talk to.
Right. Because you are clearly in denial. Yeah, I know. Right. Yeah.
Right. So that I can accept this, you know,
right.
and all that.
Right.
I told her, I said, I'm not in denial. I just know what I know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of chemo,
mm-hmm.
total body radiation, and a stem cell transplant. And all these things took place from 2002 to 2007.
Wow.
2007, I walked out of MD Anderson cancer-free.
Rung the bell.
Rung the bell.
Rung the bell.